Contextuales desde adentro, tu lugar para conectar con la psicología contextual. Un podcast de Ana Karenina Alvarenga.
So, lately I've been feeling this feeling of feeling lonely, It's like I feel alone, and at the same time I'm quite afraid of people. It's like I've managed my entire life to limit contact with people as much as I could. But at the same time, it's like whenever, I walk in the park, or even if I go to the supermarket, I see people interacting with each other. And I wonder what it will feel like to have that in my life. But at the same time, I think like I have nothing to offer, or maybe that if I open up to someone, they will hurt me. And I don't want that. And even if as I'm saying this, I'm feeling this pain in my chest. And I don't know what to do. It's like, do I have to resign myself? Is it something that I won't have, and I just have to live like this,
Well, so you've given me kind of an interesting layout of what's going on for you. Because there's feelings of loneliness, there's being alone, and those two are different things. And then there's sort of not wanting to be around people, but also noticing that people are connecting when you're out in public, and kind of wondering what that would be like for you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it feels like there's kind of this place where yes and no, and then a third place shows up. Would I be acceptable? Would people like me? Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, I think all those three things are happening at the same time. And it's quite confusing. It's like I want something that I don't really want, or do I want it? It's like, and there's a struggle, and yeah, and this fear, and there's this void within it. It's like, yeah, there is a void in here, yeah.
So part of what I'm curious about is, does the sort of space where you find yourself wanting to not really be near people, sort of this distancing, if that sounds accurate, does that fit?
Yeah, I've done that my entire life. And
Okay.
I know I do it. It's just that I don't even know how to stop doing it.
Well, and I guess part of what I want to get clear about there is it a choice, or is it to protect yourself?
Right. Yeah, I'll have to say that it like if I answer it quickly, it feels like a choice, but I'm really scared.
So, I mean, certainly there could be times when it's like, I just need to like do my own thing.
Mm-hmm.
But if we dig in a little deeper, and I can see in terms of what's happening right here, is that fear might be also playing a role. I'm scared.
I am.
Can you say more? Scared of?
scared of not being enough,
Okay.
being rejected.
All right. Well, so I just want to point to one thing, and then I'm gonna ask you another question. So I just want you to be aware, like if we come out and take perspective on what's happening,
Mhm.
is you're afraid of being rejected in the service of not wanting to be alone, right? Like if I don't want to be rejected because then I'd be by myself.
Mhm.
You with me? If I'm
Yeah.
rejected, I'm alone, and I get judged, and it's not okay. People aren't accepting me. So I'm going to stay away from people and be alone and rejected.
Mhm.
So it's kind of a fascinating thing here. It's like inside of not wanting to be rejected is rejection, if that makes sense. But I only want to look at that briefly. I just want to point to it,
Wow.
and maybe we can come back to it at another time.
I never thought of it that way.
You see what's happening there? It's like, I'll just be alone. So I don't want to be rejected because that means I'll be alone. So I'm going to be alone anyway.
Wow. I never thought of it that way.
There's a funny thing that happens when we're running from our internal experiences, that we often create the thing that we're running from. I don't want to feel rejected, and then we walk around feeling rejected. Especially inside of thoughts like, am I good enough? Am I okay? Like what would you say is your kind of stickiest thought there when you think about being rejected? Like people might not think I'm
Lovable, that there is something inherently wrong with me.
I am rejectable.
Yeah.
So let's just take a closer look, and I want to notice, like, it feels like it has some power in it, some weight in it, right? Like what, as we start to explore this, you can feel some emotion in the room.
Yeah.
I'm just going to keep inviting that. That's welcome.
Okay.
And how long has I'm unlovable been around for you?
That's probably since as long as I can remember. As
So
long as
let's just notice that for a minute, right? Like it's been there essentially forever.
forever, my entire life. Yes.
I invite you to think about this space of I'm unlovable, and ask you to kind of float back in time, take your time, to a time when you first really remember having that experience of I'm unlovable. And maybe it's a specific situation, or maybe it's something was happening in your life, but see if you can kind of go back and land on a time when I'm unlovable really, got big and you saw it as something that was happening for you. Can you think of a time like that?
I guess it was when my parents got divorced. I was about 6. My brother was younger, 6 or 7. And I just remember all the fighting and adults being irritated around me. And I try to be good. I try to be invisible, but it wasn't enough.
It didn't change what was happening.
No.
It's as if the adults in the world were like, you don't matter in some way, you're invisible,
Yeah.
caught up in their own.
It's like, you don't have to bother. You don't make noise. You do the right thing. You have to be a good girl and take care of your brother. And yeah.
I'm invisible, and invisibility means not lovable. Am I understanding it correctly?
Yes. Yes, it's like, maybe if I'm invisible, I will be lovable. But if I'm invisible, I do not get any love as a child. It's like, I had to be invisible, but it didn't get me anywhere.
Well, and it's impossible to be invisible. You can make yourself small and live in your own world and that kind of thing, in the service of trying to be the good girl, the lovable girl. But again, I want you to notice something. Same as with the rejection and loneliness. You're trying to be loved by being invisible, then you have to be invisible, and it's hard to be loved when you're invisible. Can you feel the trap that's here?
Yeah.
Well, so let's stay with this little 6-year-old for a minute. She's in a situation where parents are caught up in their process of divorce. They're arguing all the time, and you're just trying to be a good girl. And what you hear is you're unlovable in some way, like that kind of gets in the room in whatever form at that age that it shows up. Does that make sense? Like, may not be the way we're talking about it now because we're more sophisticated in our thinking, but for that 6-year-old, some kind of message was there for her to hear. And I want to invite you to maybe just close your eyes for a minute, if you would, and to think about that 6-year-old for a minute. And what it was like for her. This thing is unfolding. She's 6. And she's got to take care of her little brother. And there's a demand here to be a good girl in the midst of this painful thing that's unfolding. And what I would invite you to be curious about as you see her, in whatever way you're seeing her. Was she seeking to get this message of I'm unlovable? This little girl wanting that?
No, not at all. It's the opposite.
Yeah, she's not seeking to get this on board, but the world is unfolding in such a way that it visits her and this message is there. So just notice that she didn't start out unlovable. She wasn't seeking this message. And then allow yourself to like drop in to her shoes, like see if you can kind of get a sense of being that little girl. Now she's got this message. Would she want you, the adult you, to struggle with this your whole life? Would she wish it upon you?
No. Definitely, no, she wouldn't.
I just invite you to kind of notice here that she learned something. So, a message that wasn't there before this happened. It's not her fault that she got the message. Not her fault. She carries the message. But what we want to do is see if we can change her relationship with it. She learned it. She wasn't it. Are you with me?
Yeah.
You can just see if you can soften around this little girl who got this message, and that maybe it's not the case that she needs to be invisible to be lovable. And we'll have to see what that means, but I just want to see if you can soften around that. She learned it. She didn't start there. And then I'll invite you to just rejoin me. And I think part of where we can go, and it's going to take us more time to explore this, but is to let go of the message, I'm unlovable in this sense. You learned it, you can't eliminate it. But you don't have to walk in the world according to that message.
Wow. That would be great, to be able to.
But we're going to have to work. It's going to be tricky because minds are interesting critters and they're persistent and they're believable sometimes. And we're going to have to put together a sort of space to see that you have a mind that learned and you are more than your mind and can live in ways that you yearn for and care about.
Si te gustan los vídeos de Contextuales desde adentro, suscríbete a mi canal y activa la campanita para recibir todas las notificaciones. Y si además me puedes dar un like y dejarme un comentario, me ayudas a seguir creando más contenido para vos. Nos vemos.